Hello, I'm Peter Watt, and this is my wife June. We're the owners of the Paradigm Company, and we've been publishing books for Sam Blumenfeld, author of Alpha Phonics and How to Tutor, and other educational books for over 25 years. We thought it would be a good idea to offer to our viewers a group of most frequently asked questions or topics that have come up over the last 25 years where we have talked, when we have talked to literally tens of thousands of people over the years. I believe it has been that many, and had emails and other conversations and correspondence with them. So we thought this would be a good idea to give you the benefit of what we've been able to work out with some of those people and how we've been able to help them. The most, probably the most important thing is not exactly a question, it's a point that we've concluded and made with many people over the years, and that is that teaching reading is not nearly as hard as most people think it is. Unfortunately, over the years, the public education, professors of education who teach the teachers how to teach have been successful in making the whole thing so complicated that most people think that they practically need a PhD reading expert to teach someone to read, and that's not the case. There are only 44 basic phonograms or sounds that that a child, and we're speaking mainly of children here, beginners, there's only 44 sounds or phonograms that the child needs to learn to be able to sound out the entire English language. And sounding out is the key phrase there, because that's what you literally do when you are learning to read. You sound out words. You learn these phonograms, you sound them out. You do it aloud when you're a beginning reader, and then ultimately you do it silently in your head, and then you are a reader. The sounds, by the way, are another thing. This is another point that comes up frequently. Many parents contact us and say, "Oh, I'm teaching my child the sounds right now, and but I'm looking for a reading program," and right away we say to them, "Stop. You don't want to teach the sounds in advance, because that's what you actually teach as you go through the program, whether it's our Alpha Phonics program or someone else's phonics program. The sounds are what you teach as you go. All the child needs to know to get started is to be able to recognize the letters of the alphabet, the names of the letters of the alphabet, not the sounds, because as I said, the sounds are what you teach as you go. They need a recognition of the names of the letters of the alphabet. That would be both the capital letters or uppercase letters and the small letters or lowercase letters. And I think June's going to mention some things about do's and don'ts on teaching reading at this point, following up on where I was.
It's very important to always start at the very beginning of the book, because it is a building process. You want, especially in remedial work, you don't want to assume that you know where the child would be in school, because you may be wrong. What you need to do is start at the beginning, especially if it's an older child. They'll go through the beginning lessons very quickly, but it won't take very long for them to get bogged down and realize that where they are is something that they really don't know. So once again, don't assume you can tell where the child is if you are trying to teach them, especially if it's an older child, say 8 or 10, because we get this offer quite often to remediate a child. Always be sure that you start at the very beginning.
June, would you want to say something about whether or not you have to be a certified teacher to teach a person to read, a child to read like homeschoolers are doing?
No, you do not have to be a certified teacher at all. What you need to do is be sure that you are a reader. If you are a reader, you can teach the child yourself. We had a parent call and was very interested in trying to teach her child to read, but she was concerned because she only had a high school education. We assured her that that really was not an important thing for her to worry about, because she would be able, as long as she could read, she could teach her child herself. We asked her also to let us know how it turned out. So we got a call back a few months later, and she was so delighted at the results that she had gotten from her child. And one of the other benefits that she had found was that she improved her own reading a great deal. Now, we have had this comment from other parents too, that in teaching, they have also improved their reading ability themselves.
Did you want to also maybe follow up by saying a word or two about how you start with little beginners?
Yes.
And how that
Not
goes?
only, yes, when you're starting with beginners, sometimes children get confused. Sometimes they think you read from right to left rather than from left to right. So what you need to do is put your finger under the word on the left-hand side and slowly move across under the words or under the sentences, so that the child will realize that reading starts from left to right. It's very important so that they get this firmly in their mind, so that when they get into the more advanced parts of the book, that they're not the least bit confused about which direction in order to read.
Another thing that is important, a lot of people jump to the conclusion that a child is dyslexic. Often a teacher will have trouble teaching a child to read, and they'll call in a reading expert and they'll say, oh, the child is dyslexic. Well, most of the time that is not going to be the case. Dyslexia, true dyslexia, is really a relatively rare type of thing. But sometimes the child, for example, will have trouble when they're learning to read in distinguishing between the small d and the small b, which are actually sort of a mirror reflection of each other. And it's no wonder that they can get confused by that until they get used to it. It's unfortunate that the people who created the symbols for our letters, when they were creating the alphabet many years ago, didn't pick a different symbol for either the small d or the small b. But it just takes practice to overcome that, and it's not a sign of dyslexia any more than reading from right to left instead of reading from left to right is a sign of dyslexia, until the children get their mental muscles, so to speak, in gear and learn with some practice. They may have a problem with that. We have in Sam Blumenfeld's Alphaphonics book a lesson devoted to the small b and the small d and practicing to get over that. And most children with a little bit of practice with a lesson like that do very well. June, did you want to maybe mention say a word or two about comprehension?
Comprehension is something that is learned. There is no magic bullet to learning comprehension. Comprehension comes from learning the lessons, learning the sounds of the words. Once a child has learned those sounds and has become a good reader, comprehension builds on itself, because if the child knows what they're reading, they're going to comprehend. If they don't know what they're reading, there will be no comprehension. So this is a very important thing to be sure that the child understands and learns to do in order to have good comprehension.
You might add to that a word or two about what we tell people when they ask us about spelling.
Spelling will come from dictations. There are about 3,500 words in this book, and when you get to the end of the book, you should be a good reader and you should be a good speller. It's important to do the dictation. You say the word and have the child spell it out loud. Another thing, when the child is able to either print or write, have them write the words, have them write the sentences that you dictate to them. This way, as they learn these words, they're going to learn how to spell, and the spelling will take care of itself.
I'd like to just add a thought that I remember Sam Blumenfeld telling us a long time ago, and that is the spelling, doing the spelling dictation work, both oral and written, actually aids a great deal in learning to read. It helps to reinforce the idea of seeing the word on the page and having it in a person's mind. So I just thought I'd throw that in. And did you want to talk a little bit about the mixing of programs, of different phonics programs, trying to use more than one at a time?
Yes, it's important not to use more than one program at a time. If the parent has already started with a particular program and has said, well, you know, it doesn't do everything that I think I would like to try Alpha Phonics and use those parts that are lacking in my other program, we advise people not to do this. It's very confusing to the child. The child would have to determine, is this something I'm supposed to be learning from the original lessons that I was doing, or is this going to come from my new book, the Alpha Phonics? Whichever one you choose to use, be sure you stay with. Don't mix the two together. This can be very confusing for the child. You want to be sure that you make learning the syllables as simple as possible. Never go from one lesson to another without knowing for sure that the child completely understands what the lesson is teaching.
Another question that very often comes up with parents that are trying to choose teaching materials, like what phonics program to use, is when do I start teaching my child? When is my child ready? What age? And the answer is there's no particular age. It can vary quite a bit. Typically, children are ready around 5, possibly 6, to get serious about learning, teaching, reading. But if they're not ready at an age even 6, don't worry about it. Some children just take longer. They might be 7 or even older than that before they're really ready. This is one of the advantages of homeschooling. You can tailor such things as teaching reading to the needs of the child and not have to do it cookie cutter fashion the way the public schools have to, because they have to stick to age levels. There's 2 things that are key, I might say requirements for knowing when the child is ready, possibly 3. One is they need to know the names of the letters of the alphabet, because as you teach the sounds, they're based on the names of the letters of the alphabet. They don't need to know the sounds, as I said earlier, because that's what you're going to teach as you go. The other thing is they need to have a reasonably good speaking voice. If they're still at an age when they're, or a level where it's largely baby talk and it's hard to understand, this will make difficult communication between the teacher and the student. So they need to have a reasonable speaking ability. And then the third thing is really an intangible, and that is that they want to learn to read. And that, of course, makes a huge difference. If a child is eager, then that's going to make the job a lot easier. And frequently, if there's more than one child in the family, the younger child who is not a reader will really want to copy their older children's, their own older brothers and sisters, and that's when they'll let you know. But even if they don't have older brothers and sisters who are readers, they will tend to let you know. They'll see adults reading and they'll want to get very serious about reading, and that's the time you can start. June, did you want to maybe say a little bit about the programs that have games and card decks and things like that, and pictures?
We refer to these as bells and whistles. They are a distraction.